All right, that's the most
Hey
important.
guys, you're back on Tuesday Talk Live with this is Vera Sadler with VLS Coaching and Women of Life Ministries, and I am here again with Lady T, and we are back this week to finish up our series called Naked and Unashamed. And I'm so excited that we've had the opportunity to do this series this month because it's so important, so crucial. If you have not caught the first 3 weeks of this series, please go back to either Facebook, LinkedIn, or YouTube and catch the first 3 parts of this series because we talked about secret shames, secret sins, the secret shame of sexual sins, a shared secret. We talked about toxicity in relationships, and that was talking about when you don't deal with the trauma of those secret shames and that secret sin, that you wind up with trauma in your relationships. And then last week, which we're going to jump back into a little bit this week, the confessions of a serial adulterer. And Lady T was very honest with us. She's talked about some of the things that led her into being in adulterous relationships and also being a victim of adultery. And we're going to jump back into that, Lady T, this week because we want to go back into some of the triggers. We talked about you owning that you were in these type of relationships and some of the things that happened to you. But one of the things we didn't get a chance to is to talk about, we didn't dig enough deep enough into the triggers. I know you said, hey, there were some things where your relationship were going bad and you talked about you ended up into these relationships, but you never really, or we never really had the opportunity because there's so much to cover when we start unfolding, revealing, peeling back the layers of this. We never got an opportunity to really talk about some of the triggers that happen to you that cause this and what your mindset all the time. I mean, you said, you were vulnerable, there were things happening, but there are some other things I know that you wanted to share that we never got to. So let's just jump back in and then we're going to talk about relationships a little bit more in this series. We may have to come back top of next year and do this again, but we want to talk about this. And I want people to know, I appreciate this because not only do you speak from your experience, but you're also speaking from the mental health aspect of how the mind triggers and how the brain thinks. And we know that hindsight is 2020. We know that afterwards we grow and we mature and we come out of this. But speak to us a little bit about before you matured and before you came out and before the Lord delivered you. What were some of the things you were thinking about when you were in this situation?
Well, first I want to dovetail on what you just said, which is so critical, like about hindsight, right? Um, but I want to add to that and say the only thing is a saying I don't even know who it's attributed to, but it says the only thing worse than a young fool is an old fool.
Wow.
Because unfortunately, while you would think that you go through something or life happens and you learn, unfortunately, we don't always. It's not like an automatic that you went through something and you grew better or you learned and developed from it. Because unfortunately, there's work. It's not like because you go through something, you automatically mature. Some people actually are in regression mode, right? Right after having gone through things. Some people aren't up to or aren't being taught how to do the work, right? And so that's honestly a lot of why I want to be so honest and available to share is because I'm one of those individuals who I didn't just go through an experience and just grow and just mature and just recognize and go inward and get it. I literally repeated some of the same mistakes. And it was only after many years and again entering into mental health that I was able to pause and be reflective and go back and ask myself why. The beauty of why is just amazing in the process of getting naked, the beauty of asking. But so many times we don't ask the question why. And just to go back to like what you asked me, to be very honest, triggers are things that occur and we're not asking why. Like triggers cause us to revisit a trauma and we go into reaction mode and we're not asking why.
Yes.
We're just literally from a visceral place. So what I wanted to share something just real honest. I thought about it. I'm thinking, how can I open up enough that anybody, I want, the real issue is to bless somebody who may be saved from making some of these same mistakes, right? That's the real desire. And to give them a chance to see themselves, because no one goes into this thinking for that worst outcome, right? That's what I'm going to do. So I'm going to share, for instance, in that adulterous, that first adulterous situation. To be even real honest, I think I didn't tell all of it, because the very first I got married. To be very honest, because I was told that my boyfriend at the time, my high school sweetheart, wasn't a Christian, and you guys can't get married because he's not a Christian. My spiritual moms, everybody was. Ugh. So I was like, okay, but I was burning. So the very next man who love bombed me, I was like, okay, let's go, right? And
And
he was really
hold on,
nice.
because I don't know if people heard what you said, because you said it really quick. Guys, she's from the East. We talk fast. She
Yes,
said she was burning. And
we do.
and I
Thank
want
you.
people to hear that. And we're told that, hey, you need to burn, you need to marry so you don't burn in your flesh and when you're young. And that's what we're telling people in the church, instead of just teaching them abstinence and how other ways of self-control. Go ahead, Lady T.
Right. So, the love bombing part was important and significant for me, because it triggered, I'm talking about triggers, that affirmation, right, that I needed from not feeling valued, not feeling confident in my femininity and my womanhood, right? Again, with the molestations from multiple women, it made me feel less of a woman, right? Or that feminine aspect of myself being desired, and I didn't have the confidence from myself and my relationships. I had issues with separation, right? In my family, everybody left, and I was the youngest, so I was there alone, and I didn't like being alone, right? So I was never that kind of woman who had to have a relationship all the time, but I was that kind of person. Once I vested in a relationship, I wanted it to stay.
Okay.
I want to do everything that I could to demonstrate how valuable I was as a companion, how valuable I was as a person, how vested I was. I was going to be more committed. I was going to do, I was going to go above and beyond. I was going to sacrifice. I was going to do anything I could to lay down myself to show you and demonstrate that I was worthy of receiving the love back. Right?
Wow.
So here I am with these patterns in my mind and in my heart. And having gotten married, honestly, not for building him up as a person, not for him to build me up, not for us to both be the best versions of ourselves, but for me to fulfill this fantasy and continue what he started. Like I'm just this perfect. I didn't even let my intuition speak up. Let me tell you, sisters and brothers. So before I got married, a young lady came to me and she said, I want to talk to you. I've been dealing, I'm not going to say his name. I've been dealing with him. And he came to me and said to me, he can't deal with me anymore because he wants to marry you. And I just wanted you to know how connected we were and all the things that we were doing together. And I really feel like he was the person that God was sending to me. But now he's coming and telling me, I don't even know if you know that I'm the whole conversation, right? So in my sick mind, instead of me listening to my intuition and running, my intuition felt more affirmed. I was like, oh, he's
Oh,
telling
he
her
loves me.
goodbye, right?
He wants
The
me. He
flattery,
don't want me.
the flattery. I was like, so she heard that, right? She heard. So in my mind, it was the flattery of him wanting me more than anybody else. Like, wow, right? Instead of hearing the danger of this person is talking about marrying you, and he's not single-minded. He's clearly. So we get married, and shortly thereafter, there's like literally no intimacy, weeks at a time, 6, 8 weeks, 10 weeks. And I'm thinking of the story tells, you're supposed to get married and it's supposed to be just honeymoon and this and that and just on and on. And it was not that. And I'm like going into crisis mode. I'm like, wait a minute, what is this? That was my first adulterous experience, was right back to, and I literally ran back to my boyfriend, the one who I let go of for all of this. And I was in tears. I was upset. I'm crying. So we had an encounter, sexual encounter. Guys, I'll never forget that day. I sat in that hotel room. I felt like a dirty, I don't even know what. He left and went back. I just stayed in the shower for hours and hours and hours. And I was like, oh my God, what have I done? Who am I? What am I? What is going on? And I remember sitting there crying. I talked to the Lord, and I didn't talk to him anymore. I stopped talking to him, and I was like, Lord, let me recommit myself. I am so sorry. Look what I have done. Blah 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 blah. I went to this whole recommitment phase back with my spouse. So a year later, now it's our anniversary. And I mean, when I tell you it was a troublesome, stressful year, it was so stressful not having sex, right? Um, my first year anniversary came. The little beautiful cake that you take out the freezer. I made this wonderful dinner, right? I'm all in the books. Back then, we still use cookbooks, y'all. I wasn't Googling. I got all these cookbooks. I got all this fancy food. I had candles. I had the cake. I had the extra outfit for after. I was like, well, this is this tonight. He came home from work. He went straight in the bedroom, a beeline to the room, sat down, turned the TV on, and said, I'm not hungry. And I'm not eating. I'm good. I'm not hungry. And just zoomed into that TV, girl. My anger shot up so bad. I was so angry. I went in there and grabbed a little champagne bottle out. I went running out and inside of me. So now the trigger was that rejection, that sense of entitlement, that sense of being neglected, mistreated, caused me to now feel entitled. I felt entitled. Now, mind you, all this time this year, I'm building this relationship because they're counseling me and helping me and supporting me. Wink, wink. So that was the paradigm that it was in, supportive to help me restore this relationship, right, and to be strong in the midst of it. And so I go, can you believe this just happened? And then I'm just saying that was the ground, that was the situation and the circumstance that occurred that just catapulted me into this unstable mindset, right? Not to mention, I had not been exposed to, I didn't even know about men being on download or whatever. I didn't know that. I didn't understand when I found out that the connection between what was happening in our relationship with the lack of intimacy and the fact that he was on the download. I had no skill set, right, to deal with that. I had not, I just literally went into crisis mode, right? And that entitlement,
Ooh.
that so when this person came to me, so again, I'm talking about my part. I'm not talking about where their head was. When this person came to me, was like love bombing me. That's that right there was like, first of all, God. Now the only thing standing between me and this man who deeply now I have a friendship with, and I value the relationship of the friendship, and he's someone who I look up to. The only thing standing between me and him is God's word. And I know the last time I followed God's word, the last time everybody told me what I better do for God's word didn't work out so well. So in my mind, I'm saying, okay, God, because I do know you're going to forgive me regardless now. I'm not leaving you. But I'm saying, are your ways really always better? Because this is not working out too well for me.
Wow.
You see what I'm saying?
So I hear you saying multiple things at the moment that happen, and I hear how this path took you. One, it started early that people saying, according to the word, you have to do this. And when you did that, you found yourself in a situation, one, because I'm going to go back to the first part. You need to get married, you need to do this, but you didn't. I hear that you actually didn't even get good counseling based on that. I didn't hear anywhere you said, well, you and the man you met, y'all went to good counseling for marriage and all that. So you got the part about not burning your flesh, but you didn't. It wasn't coupled with the rest of the wise counsel that you should have had. So when all the other, and nor were you healed, like we said from the beginning, from the other trauma and the triggers and all the other stuff. So you're here. You are. I have this visual in my mind, Lady T. I have this visual of you going through, and you have this heavy bag on your back, but now you're adding another bag.
That's
when
right.
you're being told.
Yep.
And it's not that the word is heavy, because it's not. We know that the word, and we don't want anybody misconstrue what you're saying. We know that the word is freedom. But when we're being put under legalistic, how do I want to say it? Legalistic purview of someone, and told to do something without understanding, without wisdom, without counsel, and you leaped into that. And then you connected with someone that wasn't really you should have been connected with. and you were hurt. There was a lot of pain,
So
but
you
you
said
said
it.
you felt entitled
Mhm,
now to go do what you did because of your pain.
mhm.
Our pain will make us feel like we have the right to do what we do. So, but because someone used the word to tell you to do something, now they're going to, the word you felt like, well, is the word what I should be? Wow, that's some intense stuff.
So I'm gonna pick up on what you said because it's so important. You said when you use the counsel of the word is always on point, but it's the whole counsel of the word, the whole
Exactly.
counsel of the word. So the word does say it's better to marry than burn, but the Bible also shows us right about wisdom, right? So in when you're talking about relationships and connecting with another person, you cannot be broken and toxic and create healthy bonds and make healthy choices because you're not coming from a whole. You cannot bring your best true self forward when you haven't uncovered and done the work. You're only toxic. You're only able to like attracts like, right? So I'm bringing my best representative forward because that's what we do, right? And my best representative that I could bring forward at that time is hiding who I really am instead of trying to express and bring honesty to the table to someone to connect and utilize, and we both benefit from our strengths. I'm coming from a weak place, from broken places, and trying to get you to help heal me.
And he was hiding who he was.
He's
And
unhealed. He's
so
broken.
you get married, and basically he got married to continue hiding who he was, so he could continue hiding
That part.
and use you, this beautiful
You
woman,
see,
as a shield to continue hiding who he was.
you see that? Do you see how like broken attracts broken? I didn't even know, right? And he didn't know. I didn't tell him about even my traumas relating to sexuality. I
Wow.
didn't tell him those things.
Wow.
We ended up two people with these types of struggles going on. I never even knew that that was his struggle. But don't forget, we relate to people on a whole nother level, right? And so when you talk about that knowledge, knowledge puffs up, but that is not the thing that's going to save you. It's the wisdom. Charles Spurgeon said, wisdom is the right use of knowledge, right? To know something is not to be wise. He says, many men know a great deal and are all the greater fools for it. But to know how to use knowledge is to have wisdom. And then Proverbs says that understanding is the principal thing. And when you understand the whole counsel of the word, which like you said, often people who are counseling don't give you whole counsel of the word. But if a couple has already done the work, right, and you are a whole connecting with a whole, and you are coming from that healthy place, then you've done that,
Mm.
and you marry instead of burning. You instead of extending, your relationship out and getting caught out there, then you can marry instead of burning, right? That's a different healthy context of it.
Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. I just applaud you for being so honest and sharing, because I know that's not easy to be so transparent about where you were when you were in these relationships and how what triggered you to get there and what triggered you to just look. I felt like after I figured out who he was and what was going on, I felt entitled and how he treated me, and he just disregarded me. And I was deprived what we're supposed to have in a marital relationship. So I felt, and I'm sure you felt emotionally, physically, mentally entitled to have that love and to go and to get it. And you had this person you connected with on another level, even though and people do that not just physically, they do that in all kind of aspects. And so we're here to break that, tear that down, strip that away, and say again, you say it and you keep pointing to it. Healthy, healthy. We have to do the work to get healthy within ourselves, and we have to get the help. We need to tap into the resources. We need to do the work, because we're not helping one another by staying toxic, holding on to our trauma. Trauma just leads to more drama, basically.
Trauma bonding, right, is
Yeah, yeah,
overdose,
yeah.
right? And
Wow.
that's right. That's an example of people trauma bonding, right? We talk about it now. Of course, it's good that these things are more known about, but relational, emotional IQ, right? We don't just get that from a book, or just even sitting in church hearing the gospel is not the same thing of giving you the skill set that you need to navigate in relationships, and to know yourself. To come to know yourself is a beautiful thing, but often, we talked about it, they often, by the time you get to the point to know yourself, you've been, so much has happened to you, right? We have these
Mhm,
masks, and
mhm.
you've gone into autonomic mode. And so the body does this physically as well as emotionally, because the body wants to protect. It has a principle highest priority is survival, whether it's
Yes.
physical, and you've heard about flight and fight mode for the physical body, but emotionally it's the same reaction for the same goal, survival, to prevent, avoid pain or injury. That is the
Mhm.
body's job. And that's what it puts into flight and fright mode instantly when that trauma occurs. It's going right into, and so we go into those coping mechanisms. Nobody sat down and had a discussion with you to teach you to be a person who shuts down, to teach you to run from emotional closeness, to teach you to be an avoider, to teach you to have these attachment styles about a separation anxiety. Nobody sat down and taught it to you, but you caught it, right? You
Mhm.
caught it. It's what you went into, and those things are only healthy if it's temporary. It is,
Right. Right.
right. It's only good if it's what you're doing in the short range, but later,
To become healthy. Right.
we don't pause. It's like putting a bandage on a wound, right? And it's a cast. If you had a cast on your arm, you broke it, and you keep the cast on, and it's 3, 4, 5, 6 years, 10 years, 20 years later, you got the cast on. This is a problem, because now you have atrophy under there. Now you have deformity. You can't even heal right. We're not using the bandages and the cast to help us get through that acute stage and then go on to healthy resolution, forgiveness, release. We're not using it for that. We're using it to stay like that for years and years and years.
Oh, that's good. That's good. So, and some people may not know what we're talking about, the attachment styles and different things. Look them up. There's various ones, even as a mental health coach, I've studied those, but they can serve a purpose. And how you avoidance, all those different things like you were mentioning, those are, like you said, temporary. But we're not supposed to be in those places, and distraction and all those different things that we use. They're not permanent. They're just so you can let your mind rest, so you can take a step back, so you can breathe, so you can say, okay, I need to be in this place at this time with myself, so I can learn me, so I can get whole. So I want to segue into some of the final conversation we want to have. And this part may not seem as heavy, but it could be a little interesting. And some people may say, why are y'all talking about that? Well, because we thought it was interesting to have after we talked about all this other stuff with relationship. When you start doing the work and you start saying, okay, I'm working on me, and moving into relationship. And I know I had to look at this when, I'm in my second marriage, and both of us are, you've been into marriages, and but you may be looking into, now you're ready. I'm not sure if you're ready to date again, or looking for a court or whatever. But when you're looking at, it's a conversation my husband and I have often, um, because we hear things, and I hear it with single people sometimes. But I just want to throw this out there. So we hear people talking about when they're looking for this mate. Now and we want to talk about when you've done the work, when you start working on yourself, and you're starting to get those traumas dealt with. And but you hear people say, well, this person has to be this. And I think I asked you this question one day. It may have been you or someone else, but I asked someone, what is, you hear somebody say, well, this person have to have all this.
Mm.
What would you say to someone if they came to you and said, Tina, what's on your list?
It's funny we having this conversation. I was talking to my 20-year-old son today, and he came to me talking about, how some young ladies asking him for money, for what they wanted money to buy this or buy that, and it's so interesting how the world has changed, but then it hasn't, right? Because it's always been that dynamic of people who, can you get my nails done? Can you get my hair done? Can you, whatever it is that people think is part of their what they need in their dating relationship. But so you bring up such a good point. Like how do we? Everybody has all these things that they want, and so I'm about to put you on the hot seat, right? Having gotten to a point where you've made some good decisions, but to be fair, to be honest with you, right, the person that I am today, and what my desires are versus what I need, I can say it's in some ways the same, but in some ways it's very different, right? Back then, I mean, everybody, I think we can universally say everybody has on their list trustworthy character. Who's going to say I don't want to be with someone who's trustworthy? So, those basic things. He's about the family. Everybody is saying that because that's universal, right? That's obvious, I would think, because the audience you were talking to, we're not sitting here devaluing, or so it kind of the basics kind of go without saying, right? Is that okay to say that, or do we need to itemize trust and honesty and?
No, you could.
Right, V?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
so having said that, when it comes to connecting with a person, I used to think opposite was so important, like opposites attract and all that. But no, I understand my person. I know who I am, and friendship, being able to have that genuine friendship that we actually think alike, right? That we have similar values, that, like a man with a mission, and that I can pour into, and I understand that I'm here to serve him and help him to be better, and vice versa. And that is our desire to do that with one another and live according to the principles of the word, right? That we're not just here to do you. We get married and then you just go do you and I go do me. No, we're here to
So
kind
so I think what I'm leading to is we have people that say, well, women, he has to be able to do this for me. Like you said, he has to, she said, oh, stop it. I saw your lips. He said he has to have this type in his bank account. He has to have this, a house. All of these things are the list. Um, and or a man wants, she has to be this. I think what I'm trying to allude to is first, and I will say this for me, first and foremost, I think when you get healed, when we start dealing with ourselves, I think that big list becomes a lot less this big list, and it becomes first and foremost, God, what is it that you have for me?
of.
And it becomes who who have you destined and desired to bring into my
Ooh,
life?
destined.
Who have you aligned for me? Because I think we begin to know ourselves, like you said. You gave
No,
such a great illustration the one day when you were talking about you have someone and you're looking, say your goal is to do something you like. I think you were talking about being on the water,
oh,
but you're looking
my
for
water.
someone that's in the car. Right. And so I think there's a lot of times where we are so fixated on this image, but God is saying this is what I have for you, but we're so fixated over here, we don't see who God is sending. And I think that's what I'm trying, when we have this, and
Mm,
not saying that everybody has a, as my husband calls it, a flavor.
right.
So
That's
like,
fair. Mhm.
and I
Your husband is
think that's
right.
important too, that you need to be
Right.
mindful, because I think that's also what gets us caught up in those adulterous traps, that we are so busy not, God, this, I'm attracted to this. I'm very attracted to my husband. That's my type. Your type, but also, God, what are you sending? What are you saying? What do you want from me? And I've talked to this even when I had um, the Laytons on here. We may have something, but are we going to God? Because I just find now we have these long lists,
Yeah.
but we haven't bathed these lists before the Lord to say, what is it? Who is it? And how are you going to send them? Like and I probably will get a lot of eggs on my face for this one. You have women who want this big fancy house. They want these great cars. One, you don't take care of your car. You don't know how to clean a house. You don't know how to cook a meal. You don't, but you want the man
Ow.
to be able to do, ouch, I know. You want a house that you don't even know how to clean. You don't, I mean, you don't know how to cook one meal. You microwave everything and, but you
No,
want all this.
I know we going. I think we got maybe we hard on the sisters, but sister to sister love, right?
I mean, brothers and sisters, you want a wife that's gonna cook and slave in the kitchen, but you don't want
You
to
want to
take
provide.
care.
Right?
You only want to go out and provide. I mean,
Mhm.
it's vice versa. I'm not just harping on the sisters, but I think it's just for me. We have the list that we haven't really asked God what He's trying to send us.
You know, I honestly, it's like when you come into the table authentic. I think part of that is that you kind of have uncovered and you're clear on your purpose, on your strengths, right? And you're bringing yourself to the table so that someone can see clearly and they can have the ability to accept you really who you are or
Yes.
reject, right? And likewise, the same thing, right? Because once you uncover your gifts, where you're going, you understand, like you said, your purpose, what God has for you, that speaks to purpose, that speaks to clarity. When you're saying God, what are you saying? That's someone who's staying in tune with God, right? About their life and about where they're going. And that is something that in a partnership, the Bible says, how can two walk together unless they agree? Right? Being in agreement, I didn't even understand how much it meant to me to be around and have somebody who's on purpose, on a mission about something. Some people, some women, that's not even important to them. That's not what they need. Like they don't need to. They just want to. They want to chill. He wants to come home and chill. They want to come home and chill. But that ability to have somebody that's about a mission, something that's greater than me and you, something they're about something, and that if that
Hmm.
speaks to you, that's something that it means something. What are some of the things that you decided was on your short list, right? Not the now. I'm not discounting that people, especially as you mature in life, right? That it's
Things
okay.
that are important to you.
Right,
Yeah.
right. It's okay to say that you want stability. You don't want, someone who has no concern, frivolous with their money. You work really hard, and now, then that's literally. It's not even just the money. If you think about it, you're saying we're incompatible on where we're going and on how we think. People want to make it just about the money, but it's saying we don't think the same. That's why I'm saying when I have to tell you this and this, that's work. But when you already think this way, so my son asked me about this. I said, son, when you want to take someone on your first date, and in order to impress them, you need to spend hundreds of dollars to take them on a first date, and that is what they're attracted to. They like that. Then that same person who wants you to be frivolous for someone who you don't even know, and you're investing your time, energy, and that much money in frivolously, that same person, they're going to be frivolous later on. It's going to be your money. You're not going to like it when they're frivolous with your money, but you're demonstrating that you're okay with being frivolous. And then later down the line, you're going to want them to be um, scrupulous. Then that's not the deal. Someone who can respect that until we're vested, we can go more and more. And I'm going to do more. We're going to build. But for someone to expect you on the first day and you're just meeting them to do that is saying they're demonstrating their mindset to you. And by you doing it, you're demonstrating your mindset.
Hmm. Hmm. So I know people are saying, well, why are y'all going there? Because I think what we're trying to say for all those that maybe just be hopping in and coming in now, we have just been going from Naked and Unashamed has been our series all month. And what we're trying to lead into is that when you strip away the toxicity, the trauma, and this part is dealing with trauma. Because if you don't deal with your trauma and your baggage and all the things that have caused you to be a toxic and unhealthy person, you will go into a relationship and you will bring that toxicity mindset, that toxic mindset into the person that you're trying to build a relationship with. And even when God is trying to give you the person that He is destined for you to be with, you may even overlook
Mm,
that person because you still have that
mm,
traumatic mind. We talked about how You and I have talked offline about how God will have that one person for you, but because you still have that traumatic and that victim mindset, this person, you don't see them because you walking in a victim mindset or a trauma mindset, or you haven't dealt with yourself being unhealthy. So you have this list, or you have this thought
Unrealistic,
process,
right?
or you have these unrealistic goals and expectations. And this is why I'm bringing this up, Lady T, is because we put these expectations, these goals, or these behavior patterns that we expect from our mate and our spouses, but they're not from a healthy place. So some people say, well, you can't give us advice on who we should pick. No, that's not what I'm saying. What I really just want to get to the root from our conversation, our interaction here, is that I want people just to be healthy in their choices, because they're coming from, as you keep saying, from a healthy place within. And you said you were going to put me on a spot. I'll just put it out there. I had a list when I divorced my first husband, and it was a time before I met anyone, even before I met Pastor Donald, Donald, or however anybody wants to call him, Mr. Sadler. Before I even met him, I started writing down. I used to journal all the time. I don't journal as much before, but I still write. But I remember I was writing down, and I remember I said, God, this is what I want. So I had
Mhm,
my wants list at
mhm,
first.
mhm.
Then I
And
prayed.
mhm,
And then I said, but God, I want you to show me what I need. So as I was praying, there were certain things that stood out. And so then my list got a little bit shorter. It wasn't totally, it still had about 12 things on the need, because some of them were spiritual too. They
mhm.
weren't just physical,
Right.
or they
Mhm.
weren't just,
You want a certain kind of
finances,
leadership. Mhm.
spiritual too. Because I wanted someone that could lead me spiritually. I wanted, because I didn't want that to be a struggle, because operating in the word and the calling on my life, I needed someone that understood that. I needed someone that had my back in that. I wanted someone that, God, I didn't need handcuffs on that. So some of those things were
Amen.
spiritual.
Mhm.
And so, and like even doing this, I needed someone that when I said, oh, I really believe the Lord is calling me to do this. And I'll just give you an example. When I published my book last year, behind my back, my husband and my daughter bought a whole bunch of them from the publisher.
I
My
love that.
husband put it out before I put it out
Right.
and released it. And if you would have been at my launch party and heard what my husband said about me, I wept.
Oh God.
But that's somebody that has your back. And you were talking about matching your energy. My husband has I mean, we are both go getters. We are both ambitious.
And
And
yes,
so
mhm,
when you have someone that you have to have someone that matches that, like you said.
mhm.
So those things are important, but you can't do that. You don't even see that's important when you're broken, and when your mind's not right, when you're carrying that heavy load. You don't see those things. That's why you have to go to God with that list,
Mhm.
and you have to bathe that with God and say, okay, God, this is what I think I need. I need to be 6'4", 220 pounds, cut and biceps and all this. And his bank account, and God says, well, I need him to be 5'11". I need him to know the word. I need him to be this, and this. And he was saying, this is what I'm sending you.
Mhm. It's funny you
And
saying this.
don't
You
overlook him when he comes your way.
you're hitting it because I was a very private person. That's another thing about me that caused me to be vulnerable, right? To these kinds of I was very, very private on these kind of issues. I wouldn't talk to anyone. But there's a book, I think it's called Before Love's in View. I can't think of the minister's name, but it's called Before Love's in View. And I have taken a few of the principles I read there, and for the first time in my life, now let me tell you, sisters, what it entailed. So I have my list, a beautiful list, several lists, my vision and all. But I'm actually not, while I'm not reciting it, one of the things I was cautioned is to be very careful in just spilling out to the brother, this is what I'm looking for, right? Unfortunately, and it's not even by malice, but sometimes a person who's also sending up their best representative, not necessarily by malice, will try to do what they think you want or need or what you would like, right? Not just being in their natural who they are, right? They're sending forth their best representative, and you let them know, or they've gleaned. A brother told the ladies in the church, he said, "You women don't realize often when you come into a relationship, when you're in that vulnerable space and you're telling them about how bad your last relationship was, and all the bad things that happened to you." He said that brother's listening, and all he figures is, okay, I just got to go be the opposite of that. And so they come in and they do the opposite. He said, but the key is, because it's not where they are, they can't sustain it. So they can't
Yes.
maintain that. So, what became so important to me now is that not just how someone interacts with me, but how they're showing. When my one of my besties went over this, my list, one of the things on my list was that how he's showing up in his life before me, attested by those that are in his circle, the people that know him, right? His pastor, his church family, his close family, his children. What do they say? How has he already been living with them, right? And what do they say about him? Because it's one thing for us to be in our own intimate space and we are thinking of all how we want to be and what we want to, you sharing your best part of yourself with a person, right? Because you can't help but share what you aspire to. But it's another thing someone telling you how they living already, right? Because it's sometimes getting ready for potential gets tired. Like at some point, no one's perfect, but you don't always want to be dealing with potential. You want someone to demonstrate
Reality.
what have you actualized in your life. How are you living? What is really your character in your life, not who you want to be. That's something that I've added, and I gleaned that from the wise counsel of many, that it is not such a good thing to be isolated in these areas. The other piece is not only pushing into their circle and understanding how they're showing up in the world, but also making myself transparent to, because I want them to show up in my world and see how I'm living and what that means to me. But also, the book spoke to letting these close people who know you in on it, right? Of course, it's my decision, it's me and the Lord, but being willing to be vulnerable and to have an iron sharpens iron. Like V, like I might have to call you up, like V, like because why can't we let each other? How do we develop that circle where it says in the council of many is safety, but then we can become unsafe? Because when you're in that love space, you're not as objective. I thought it was
That's
really
true.
wise counsel.
So is the name of the book When Love's in View, Finding Focus in Dating and Relationships?
You found it.
Possibly. Is that it?
It has
I'll
a
probably
little
put it.
umbrella on the book, and then it's a series. One of the books is Undercover. It talks about your pastoral or someone in the ministry that's like you're covering as a father, especially for people who didn't have a father.
Find the cover book,
Um,
but this might be the one you're talking about. So I'll put
yes,
the
that's
resource
Dr.
there.
Conway Edwards. Yes, it's a couple, and they actually have a ministry for walking in your purpose and living your life under God as He designed for you to live it, even prior to getting married. So like you're on track or where you want to be, and therefore it's so much clearer that you're connected and on one accord.
Good, good,
Beautiful.
good. So, I love putting these resources up because we're talking about a lot of heavy topics on this Naked and Unashamed. And just want people really to be, I'm not sure where the echo is coming from. I'm not where that is, but I apologize for those listening why we have an echo. I'm not sure. But I just wanted
Right.
people to have these resources and everything. And
I hear it. Yeah, I hear. So maybe is it going now?
yes, no,
So so real quick, I'm going to ask you a question, V. So remember I shared that situation that happened with me on my first anniversary that I went off into trigger mode. So as I replay that and as I become more self-aware, what a healthy response would be. So sometimes you're dealing with someone who's toxic, right? And then you go off into a toxic reaction. But having the skill set to be healthy, because even in a healthy relationship, we're not all perfect. So what I learned is too that we have rhythms that we create in a relationship, and then we feed off of each other's toxicity in the areas that we're not fully developed. So in that kind of thing, I was that person in that case who was doing the flight mode, right? I wasn't dealing. So that in a healthy space, I would have understood something we call self-soothing. It took me totally emotionally off kilter, but I didn't understand to self-soothe. I had to do something. I had to do something to try to fix it. I had to run into relieve my feelings of what I felt, that rejection and the pain. I had to do something, but in actuality, right, when you're in that grounded space, I didn't have to do anything. I could have went in my room and prayed. I could have, whatever it was that I felt, and I don't even want to be all spiritual about it, right? But people disappoint you in relationships, but it doesn't mean you have to go all off to the deep end, right? Um, right? I certainly could have verbalized myself. I could have expressed myself. I could have said, I put a lot of time and energy into this. I really like blah, blah, blah. I could have been honest and so many different things. But when we don't know how to self-soothe, um, in a relationship, when you have an attachment style, the opposite of that is my next relationship. I was very anxious and I was always speaking up. I was always saying, I need this, I would like this, I want us to work on our relationship, I want us to work on our communication. And what did he do? He went into avoidance mode. It was like he was that shut down person who never wanted to talk, and he was really shut down. But I was that anxious person, was like, well, can't we talk about it now? Can't we work through it? Or we really need to set a time to talk about it. Or when I was that person who was that pushing person that didn't allow him to come out, right? Because for him it was pushy. But I never learned till later to self-soothe, that I could hear him say that and respect his boundary. Okay, so you need time, and give him a chance to come forward and be healthy. Okay, so we'll table this for a couple of days, and when you're ready, we'll come back and we'll talk about it. Now, obviously, if that's a pattern and they're never coming back, they're never being accountable, but to have that mode where you can't be, where you have to be anxious and you have to be needy, and creating that avoidance versus anxious tempo is also unhealthy, right? Just like we talked, V and I think we talked before this about people who take their relationships and they idolize a man versus people who disdain and disrespect, right, based on their history. And those are still trauma victims, women who, we often will take a man and, he's the most important person in the home, and we won't even express, we won't verbalize, we won't be able
Mm-hmm.
to,
Mm-hmm.
love ourselves and love our children with balance.
So I popped this resource up because this is one that my husband and I both read this book. I have shared it with many couples, especially young couples. But it talks about something you finding that balance of how to communicate, how to deal with yourself. Because lots of times we want to deal with the other person, but we don't
Right.
deal with ourselves, and we get on this cycle in relationships where Dr. Eggerichs calls it the crazy cycle.
Mm-hmm.
So sort of like this merry-go-round, and no one wants to hop off.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Someone has to get off the crazy cycle
To get
so
off.
that our relationships can work. And even in how we look at person, where we're talking about how we're looking at going in, if you're thinking about listening to our conversation tonight and you're thinking about getting into relationship, I would advise you to just consider this book and look at the keys and the what it says about getting into and how you communicate with that spouse, or the person that you believe God has sent your way, because every tool that we've shared every week will help you and help you grow.
Amen. 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 Yeah. That was real good what you said about jumping off that cycle. It takes one link in a chain to stop the chain reaction.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So
I hear it.
as we wrap up tonight, I just want to encourage everyone, go back and watch all 4 weeks. Listen to the previous 3 weeks, re-listen to this one. I know that it seemed like there was some heavy conversation, heavy talk, but we did this. Tina and I, Lady T and I did this because we really want people to hear our part when it comes to relationship. Brothers, sisters, we really started this out because we wanted to talk. The more that we talked about it, we said, this is where if you're having toxicity in relationships, we wanted to start peel back. Where did it start from? Does it start from trauma? Is it and trauma that hasn't been released? Is it from not dealing with people? Is it other people being mixed up? Sometimes it's not even just adultery. Sometimes it's family, it's other people in your relationship. And we put a bunch of resources. Is it just dealing with your own mind, getting your mind healthy? So we just wanted to encourage you. Just consider that God wants you healthy in every aspect of your life. God wants you to be healthy in every part of you, and we want you to. If you need some help, you need some assistance, reach out to me, reach out to Lady T. We are here for you. We're here to just, even if we're not the ones, we're here to send you proper or refer you to the proper resources. So that's what we have for you tonight. Any closing remarks, Lady T?
Just grateful to have shared this time with you. Thank you so much. Just blessings to everyone. And when the word says that he has given us the ministry of reconciliation, it's for us to be healed. He says that he has come to mend the brokenhearted. And he doesn't want us just to be reconciled to him. He wants to be reconciled with ourselves and other people. And so I thank you
Yes.
for this opportunity to make moves toward that, toward the body of Christ, being reconciled to one another, to him, and just walking in the abundance and the freedom that comes from getting naked and unashamed to be unapologetically who he created you to be.
Awesome. Girl, I love you. I appreciate you and thank you. Again, this is Vera Sadler with Tuesday Talk Live, VLS Coaching, and Lady T with Women at the Well Ministries. And we will see you again on Tuesday Talk Live.